You like what I did there? You like that clickbaity title? You like the fact that I had the wherewithal to get all of you to click on this video so that we can have a discussion about body positivity? I like that I did that too. All right, I'm going to be honest with you. It's not fully clickbait. I am going to be reacting to a disagreement that Abba and Preach had here on this video where they're talking about Lizzo losing a bunch of weight, which is good for her, by the way. That's what I'm talking about. I'm always going to champion people wanting to be better versions of themselves, so I'm not going to really hate on that. But I thought that this would be a good opportunity to have an interesting conversation. Now, Abba and Preach, they typically do a lot of reaction videos. That's pretty much their bread and butter, right? And there are times where they don't necessarily agree with each other. And I really think that's good. You don't want to live in an echo chamber. I think it's a good idea that they have their own differences and opinions and they don't just, mirror each other in every single way. Because if they did, that'd kind of be boring, right? So we're just going to react to some of the stuff that they said here because that's just what I want to do because it's my podcast and it's my channel. And that's what we're going to do. So with that said, let's switch over. All right, so here we go.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I think it's interesting. I'm happy for Lizzo. Good for her.
But I understand the thing that we're saying is that, yeah, it doesn't matter your weight as long as you're healthy. And I think that still stands. And they're right. It's just that it catches up to you.
Okay, so you can see by the look on Abba's face that he 100% does not agree with the being healthy regardless. I don't think you're healthy when you're a big person, whether you're in your 20s or you're in your 40s. Being young protects you to a certain degree in the sense that it's not going to readily hit you the way you think that it would. But the hands of time come for everyone, and it will inevitably come for you. So let's just be really mindful of that.
And as long as you're healthy with your body aging, it slows down. You're okay to be big. You are. As long as you're healthy. Yeah, until you're not. And sometimes it switches overnight. It doesn't creep up. It doesn't like slow.
I don't really agree with this about it switching up overnight, although Abba is going to mirror my sentiments when it comes to this in particular. Now, mind you, I do want to say that I think they both had good points in this video. I'm not just going to say that, one of them was right and the other one was completely wrong because that's just factually not true. I do strongly believe that they both made good, valid points, but it doesn't just happen overnight. That's not the way the world works, and that's certainly not the way that our bodies work. There are signs that something is wrong. Our bodies try to warn us. You might wake up one day and your legs or your fingers are twitching all of a sudden because you've consumed so much sugar to the point where you are either diabetic or you're pre-diabetic, and you do start feeling it within your body. It does happen. This isn't something that you can just will away, or if you just ignore it, it just won't happen. That's not the way life works, unfortunately. So let's hear what he's got to say in response.
Slowly go. It really creeps up on you and you wake up and then it's there. And sometimes you can just not wake up at all. It's really crazy. You don't see the signs. Your doctor don't see the sign, and they see the sign until it's like, when they see the sign, it's too late. They see the sign on your autopsy. It's crazy.
Well, that's not true.
What is not true?
That they don't see the signs. The signs are there. You just didn't go look for it. You didn't go talk to an expert. I'm sorry. Doctors don't know much about body weight and all the stuff that relates to it. Unless you're getting blood work done, unless you're doing all these things, you can't see the cell damage, but it doesn't mean it's not happening the whole time. That's not true. It's happening.
I've seen some people go to experts.
Yeah, so I will say, I do think doctors do know sometimes. They have to have a base level of education when it comes to weight, because when you go to a doctor's office, one of the first things that they do when they're getting general information on you is they do take your weight. Then they match that with your BMI, and then they dictate on that whether or not you can stand to lose weight depending on your age, your height, things of that nature. But they do have a base education on that. I wouldn't just go and say that, hey, you got to go to a nutritionist, or you only had to exclusively get blood work done, because reality, that's not the way it works. I've gone to some really horrible nutritionists that don't really take the time to have a conversation with you. They just kind of throw a meal plan together and say, hey, eat this, you'll be better. It doesn't always work out that way. But the blood work does certainly play a factor, because it will end up inevitably telling you what is wrong with you. And I think these are things that people tend to ignore quite a bit. I've been seeing this a lot on Instagram in particular, where You have a lot of like fat acceptance influencers who make it a point to speak up for themselves about doctors not weighing them during their visit. I think it's kind of silly, to be honest. I get it. Maybe they're doing it for the content, the clout. They probably want the rage bait so that, people will leave comments and that, sort of feeds into the algorithm and then it just produces more and more. So in reality, every negative comment that you're giving them, you're just kind of like bolstering them up, so to speak. Um, but I do think that the idea of you telling them that you don't want to weigh yourself is silly, as to say that weight never does play a factor into your health. It might not in all circumstances, but it does certainly happen at certain points.
I'm telling you, experts. I'm talking about a perspective of experts. And remember, my family works in the field, right? I'm talking about they've been seeing experts. And one thing changes in your body, hormonal or whatever it is, and it flips the whole thing overnight. So you could do the blood work and everything and stuff, and then things pop off. I'm just saying.
I just strongly disagree. In my experience, people go to medical persons and they think because they work in medicine, they know everything that there is to know about dieting. They know everything there is to know about what a healthy body weight is. They know everything they need to know about what to actually look for in your blood work. They don't. Have you actually even found out what doctors traditionally do when it comes to learning about diets and stuff like that?
Yeah, so he did make a point here. I do like, once again, the fact that they did disagree, because you don't want to live in an echo chamber and always just, pat each other on the back and say, hey, great job, man. Thanks for agreeing with me again on everything, even though I strongly disagree with you. But I will say that a doctor can read your blood work. They, for the most part, know what, to look for. But at the same time, they do tell you to go see specialists for a reason, because there are going to be certain situations where, something might look off on this particular slide of blood that they gathered from you, and they might not be able to read it properly. So they'll send you to a specialist, and then they will determine a good plan for you. Like, let's say you have heart issues, for example, and they did an EKG. Hey, that's great. But now, they might send you to go see a cardiologist, and they might put you through a stress test to make sure that your heart's not going to explode. You know what I mean? When you're like walking down the block. So doctors, not every doctor is going to be able to perfectly read out to you every ounce of your blood work. They kind of just focus on the main. There's like a certain degree of blood work that they focus on, and they kind of ignore everything else if it doesn't look too crazy, because they're not going to really go down every single list and tell you what's what all the time. They're going to focus on primary things. They're going to focus on, whether you're pre-diabetic or if you have like any STDs, things of that nature. Things that pop out immediately are what they focus on. But illness that does come from being big, these are, a lot of them are chronic conditions that can be and often are changed with lifestyle changes. Now, not to say that that's always the case, because you could be somebody with really good weight and, you're a type 1 diabetic because it ended up being hereditary, and through no fault of your own, you now have to take insulin for the rest of your life so that you don't succumb to this mortal coil. So there are certainly circumstances where your weight isn't always the factor in these conditions, but for the most part, a lot of the times it really is. Let's just be real about it. Anyway, let's go back to these guys here.
They take like a course that's just a few days.
I understand that, but usually doctors will actually tell you off the bat, you're too big. No matter what problems you have, and then when they don't find a solution, they're going to be because your weight. They will go to that first. Doctors are known for that. Actually, that's the reason why the whole movement is based on. It's based on them being a bit big, going to the doctors and being like, I got some problems, like I really have like my for example, my menstrual cycles are really painful. It's your weight. So everything is going to be your weight, even if it's not. So
I do agree with Preach in this particular situation. I have gone to doctors where the first thing they'll focus on is my weight. And mind you, look, I'm a little bigger than I used to be. I'm 41 years old, so granted I'm older. Although I am working on it, I'm never going to stop. I do remember at certain points in my life, because I'm 6'1", so if I'm over 180 pounds, they automatically think that I'm obese. If they see that I have a 1-pack instead of a 6-pack, that has happened where that would be one of the first things that they primarily focus on. But again, that's not always going to be the case. You have professional athletes like basketball players, wrestlers, people of that nature that are in fact bigger than what their BMI would dictate for them to be, and they're still healthy people. So just because you have a certain amount of weight, you have to, other things play into factor. You know what I mean? Like some people are endomorphs where they just gain weight seemingly from existing, you know, there's nothing they can do about it. You could eat a bagel and cream cheese and you're going to physically see it like appear in your stomach. And then you have, ectomorphs who are more long and linear and they don't really gain weight that quickly. They can kind of escape with eating cheeseburgers and hot dogs their whole lives and not really get any weight, at the very least until they hit their 30s or 40s. And then you have mesomorphs, which are just genetic freaks, and they have the ability to build muscle very easily. You often tend to have hybrids like mesoectomorph. Those tend to be like basketball players, like they're tall, they're thin, but they have a lot of muscle on them. You know, so but Preach is right to his point. Doctors will often make that assumption the second they see you. Now, granted, to me, sometimes it's a little exaggerated, but if you are extremely obese where it's apparent the second they see you, then, you know, I do think the weight would play a factor in that situation.
I disagree with what you're saying, that the doctors are like, no, everything fine. Most of the doctors, because they're not informed, will go through your weight and say like, well, you got a problem with your back, you got a problem in your back, you should lose some weight. You got a problem in your neck, wait. You got a problem with this thing hurts your tummy, wait. So they will go to that first. So when they do the blood work, the people that do the blood work, the doctors that don't know what's going on, or even the specialists, and I'm not going with my...
I don't know what specialist that person saw, so I'm just not going to take their word for it. I don't believe them. People tell me they went to see a doctor. That has nothing to do with what they're dealing with. Oh, I went to go see the family doctor. Okay, well, is that person a dermatologist? No, they don't have an expertise. How are they going to be able to identify it? Unless these people actually went to go speak to the people whose actual field this is, no. Most people in the medical field don't know. They don't know what a healthy body weight is actually supposed to be based off your family history. Don't matter, just say your weight. I will concede. Maybe doctors just be saying that all the time. And it's possible that people don't take it seriously. But if you actually go see an expert and they do it, they find out about your diet, they find out about, you might even present healthily. And he might be like, you know what? If you keep going like this, you're probably going to have a cancer by the age of 45. This is your likelihood.
That's actually really interesting what he said about presenting healthily. That is very much the case because once more, you do have people that, let's say, for example, you're 5'10" and, you know, you're about like 165 or 170 pounds. If you're a guy, that is. And, you know, once more, because your parents, you know, your uncle or somebody in your family that's close to you, you know, had type 1 diabetes, you could inherit that. And that has nothing to do with how big you are. Typically, pre-diabetics or type 2 diabetics, they are the ones that tend to gain it, you know, through weight or, you know, other changes in their body. I'm not a doctor, by the way, in any way, shape, or form. I'm just some dude on the internet with my webcams and microphone just talking. But I do want to get my perspective on this because I feel that it is important. By the way, if you are enjoying this video and you feel that you're gaining any value from it, please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, help your brother out so that I can produce more content. I do want to do more reaction videos because they are fun and I want to speak my mind. I want to give my perspective. You know, we do live in the world with other people and I don't want to pretend that they don't exist and that I can never talk about anything because we certainly can. So let's get back to the video here.
There's experts for that, but doctors are not the person for that. Mm-hmm. Doctors are not actually trained for it. That's one thing we're going to disagree.
For that part,
and
so for that part, you are right.
I will say, I don't believe this stuff is overnight. You just ignore the signs. You ignore the symptoms. Because nobody who becomes fat does so overnight. Nobody who suffers from most health issues when it comes to their fatness happens overnight. What ends up happening is that they have constant gas that they ignore and they think it's a normal symptom. Or all of a sudden they're having bowel movements that's not abnormal, but it goes away for a time so they think they're better. But reality is you're accumulating all the symptoms and it's all happening. But it's not possible for you to be healthy and then you wake up the next day and all of a sudden your blood cells have all degenerated. That's not the way.
Yeah, that's very true. These things do happen gradually. And you know what? Because they do happen gradually, it tends to happen at a slow rate, the same way as, you know, oh, how did I become 30 pounds heavier all of a sudden? It creeps up on you. You know, you start eating more, you eat late, or the foods that you're eating aren't very healthy. You're not incorporating any vegetables. You're eating a tons of sweets. You know, you're drinking your calories. That's another one that people tend to ignore. You know, if you drink a lot of juices or sodas, you know, soda can like deteriorate your esophagus. You know what I mean? And then you could end up with a whole host of other issues where you have like acid shooting up and burning you up, and then you have really bad acid reflux. These things do happen gradually. They don't happen immediately. I can remember a time when I was a kid. I used to love eating milk and cookies, and I would get a whole bag of whatever random cookies were available, and I would just dump them in milk, and I'd squash them with a spoon, and I would eat it like if it was a bowl of cereal. And I did that long enough, and I did end up having problems later on because of it. Luckily, I have a very good gastroenterologist. I have a good cardiologist. I have a lot of good doctors. They're your tool belt. You know what I mean? You want to have this. And hey, look, I'm going to say this, okay? Because I think we got the basic idea of what Abba and Preach were talking about here. I want to take a moment to really instill this inside of everybody's head. You need a toolbox of professionals to help you, okay? Because gradually, as you get older and the hands of time are creeping up on you, you will one day leave this world, okay? But it doesn't mean that you can't go kicking and screaming. If you are young, look, if you're in your 40s or 50s, I still personally consider that young. You shouldn't just submit to death's, you shouldn't submit to death's warm embrace just because, or cold embrace, actually. Why am I saying warm? You don't want to submit just because you didn't do your due diligence and take the time to see some specialists. Go see a regular doctor. That's always the first step. Establish care with somebody that has the ability to do just a physical on you. Get your weight, have them do some blood work on you. If they see something out of the ordinary, and hey, you might want to establish care with like a ENT, cardiologist, gastroenterologist. There's a plethora of different specialists that you can go to in order to make sure that you get the best outcome for your life. It might be cool, like they said earlier in the video, that you're in your 20s. It doesn't really hurt you that much when you're overweight, but it does creep up on you as you hit your 30s and 40s and 50s and on. Suddenly you don't have that pep in your step. You have a lot of brain fog. You can't remember anything. You can't articulate yourself the way you did when you were a kid. You can't stay up past a certain time anymore. You're exhausted perpetually throughout the course of the day. You're extremely lethargic, and you need 10 cups of coffee just to get, past an 8-hour shift of work. These things do happen, and nobody ever really takes it seriously until it's too late. Okay? Until you're in that bed of regret. And you know what? This isn't a video to insult anyone that's overweight. Everyone's on their journey. I go to the gym, and there's a ton of people there that are overweight, and I always wave at them, and I encourage them to be the best versions of themselves, because let's be real here. The gym is a place to better yourself, okay? It's a place to get healthy. It's a place for mental clarity as well. It takes a lot of hard work to build yourself, to sculpt your body. You know what I mean? So always make your best effort and make sure that you don't give up, okay? There's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight. And if you're big, I have no issue with you being big, but then don't talk crap about people that work hard towards keeping the figures that they want to keep, okay? Because it's a lot of work to get big, and it's also a lot of work to get healthy. They both fall in that same category, believe it or not. I'll just say this. Look, when it's all said and done and the dust settles, you decide what type of life you want to have. I'm not going to judge body positive people, fat activists, but you know what? Sucks more than not being able to eat whatever you want, having to take like 20 different pills every night, because otherwise you can't function as a regular person. And with that, done.